Golden Age. Skypiea. Hidden Inventory. Almataran. If there's a trope that shonen manga loves more than exorcism and fan service, it's flashback arcs. Taking a step back from the present to gaze deep into a past that has defined the world that the characters have come to live in, all in order to gain more context on decade, if not century-spanning conflicts. The focus of a main character turns on its head, the cast becomes brand new, and while everything is told through a lens of dramatic irony, every single new addition has you waiting on the edge of your seat to witness the moment where it all begins to fall apart. Sometimes gradual, other times all it takes is a little push. These segments are often anticipated as some of the series' most important and highly rated moments, and with the exception of some they meet those margins and become staples of their own franchises. There's already videos made on Kagurabachi's Seitei War and what we know so far, but I say that they're not aiming high enough. Past arcs are a lot like cooking. The prep happens on a constant and from very early on. The flavors simmer and develop slowly, and only then is the finished dish revealed at once to the customer. Anticipation grows in proportion to the amount of characters related to the past, and while Jujutsu Kaisen had Gojo, Nanami, and Geto, just how many does Kagurabachi? 15. There are 15 confirmed characters of critical importance, all connected to the Seitei War. This is why Seitei War may become one of the greatest arcs in shonen history. I hope you enjoy. Instead of relying on theory, I am stating facts and only facts. But first, we need to set a singular standard. Whose perspective are we experiencing this arc from? The obvious choice is Shiba. From the get-go, he's become a kind of pseudo-deuteragonist, yet also doubling as the sensei figure. He has both personal connections to all the sword bearers and Kunishige. There's even the mentorship he got from Ichiki that bonded him to Azami, a mystery to many in the ranks of the Kamunabi, yet known to all as the king of sorcery itself. His perspective is truth, reality, and a sense of forlorn responsibility. He was always on Kunishige's side, not hesitating to beat up the superiors he once answered to, all in order to defend him. If there was anyone in the past who could tell the full story of Kunishige's choices, it'd be this guy. But Kagurabachi isn't obvious. It subverts, redirects, and does the unexpected. I find it hard to believe that there'd be just one main character to begin with, but at the least, everything will start with the manga Oppenheimer, Kunishige's perspective, venturing into the mind of a man born with specialty and tasked with carrying the country on his back. The ego, the pressure, the stakes, and the glory. If Kagurabachi has built anything throughout its 100-chapter runtime, it's that Kunishige was an incredibly complex man, and that only begins to scratch the surface. They were 18 when they joined the counter-sorcery army. They were 22 when the war had finally ended. But more than just Shiba and Azami, Kunishige had two other characters next to his side that create dynamics and character depth that Shiba never fully experienced. Akemura Soga and his sister, the soon-to-be wife and mother of Chihiro. The fact that neither Azami or Shiba consider Akemura or his sister part of their nostalgia trio means that these were completely separate dynamics, even if they intertwined from time to time. And in order to fully understand the drama that led to the malediction, you need Kunishige's point of view. You will never be able to understand the descent into madness from someone who Kunishige trusted so deeply unless you get to see the bloom and blossom of that personal bond. There's also very distinctive imagery to each enchanted blade. Where did those visuals come from? Do they have reason beyond the obvious? What about the naming of the blades? How and why were these choices made? And of course, what about Akemura? Where did he come from? How did they meet? They're questions that only his side can answer. And from a meta-narrative storytelling perspective, having the pivotal focus beyond the Rokuhira ancestry pushes Kagurabachi's thematic resonance more from a Chihiro-centric story to a Rokuhira family drama. Such a choice also enhances the potency of Sins of the Father symbolism, as the Seitei War and the world thereafter would be seen as both the consequence and legacy of Kunishige's actions. Even then, while the Seitei War is an interpersonal drama, it's also a consequence of everything that happens before the invasion. And while there's more story to tell with the island suddenly appearing and the invasion beginning, this would require an Islander perspective. Would it be the then royal family in the heyday of their rule, or like Attack on Titan, following soldiers of the opposite sides? This conflict has been propagated, alienated, and twisted into falsehoods, and the war flashback is without a doubt going to reveal the full truth. The counter-sorcery army transforming into the Kamunabi is an incredibly important plot point. Not only does it cultivate the importance and past of characters like Izaru, Kudo, Togo, and the others, it puts the spotlight on the already successful Kazen, Yatsuru, and Ichiki. We know from the present story alone that Ichiki values education. Yatsuru is a medical savant, and Kazen took care of most of the country's hard-hitting politics. They were already prominent people of interest in the CSA due to their sorcery mastery, and having that switch from self-serving militia to a government-wide political organization means that their skills began to be extended further than just sorcery. With that comes stress, new responsibility, and having to make choices that now in hindsight were all dangerously bad. There's an incredible implication to be had with Yatsuru and Ichiki deciding to make Kazen the leader of the Kamunabi. It means he was trustworthy, rational, and ready to take risks if it meant the betterment of the country. His current character is a reflection of what was always there, and with the war will find the origin point to his desire for totalitarian control. While Azami was born into an elite clan and had certain privileges because of it, including the fact he was recruited to become a colonel in the CSA, I imagine that Ichiki becoming a battle instructor was both huge character development in his educational mindset, but also a big difference maker in creating the warriors that would become the world's best. And while Yatsuru has taken a large backseat in the story thus far, her implied medical knowledge could be why the Kamunabi has much higher grade health services comparative to a regular hospital, including the cyborg arm given to Kazane or the neural pathway surgery operations done on Hakuri. There's a reason this war's victory is celebrated in triumph and considered a borderline miracle, and it's because it was a terrible, terrible losing battle at first. A year surplus of casualty, as the war veterans put it, hell on earth. Invading mainland Japan, conquering prefectures like Shizuoka, Chiba, Kanagawa, and the like, recruiting sorcerers and elite clans from all across the country, and still not being able to hold a candle to the destructive yet fully controllable power of the Daten Seki. That was until Kunishige showed up. Not out of nowhere, he had been in the CSA for at least a year at this point, but with an idea. Some way, somehow, he got his hands on Daten Seki, and somehow he knows the way around its toxic, ill-fitted qualities, setting up a meeting with the now Kamunabi leaders, giving the iconic "you should take a chance on me" line, and upsetting many in the process. Yet more than likely, due to Kazen's belief and risk-taking ability, the plan was greenlit. It borders on insanity to weaponize the very thing that is currently causing your country's demise, but you can tell there wasn't much of a choice. It was either this or impending doom. Kunishige isn't just the hero of Japan because he carries the nation on his back. He was literally their last bastion of hope. Izaru hated the plan, for he's been characterized as someone who believes in Japan's own strength. Using the enemy's power against them goes against every principle he holds dear. The ones who took his side, later to be known as the Rokuhira faction on the other hand, were open to the idea if it meant having even a slight slight chance of victory, because at the end of the day, that's what mattered most. And as the plan was set into motion, the perspectives would swap from politics and discussion of ethics to the battlefield. This is where the 5 enchanted blade wielders would come to play. The series has set a somewhat followable pseudo-order for the enchanted blades, and the one who would be given the first enchanted blade would without a doubt have the most expectation of them all. This is the one part that I cannot say for certain because it's a coin flip, but logic would state that the role landed on Subaru, the oldest of the group. If it wasn't for Akemura's nepotism, one can imagine he was the group's real leader. This trait shown further by his frontal defense guard position against Soga. And since the enchanted blades are all characteristic of their wielders, the patent pending Sushi Slicer was a blade made to protect. The first installment of its series, all in the idea of self-defense. Besides Akemura and the Shinichi, which were confirmed to have been created for one another, for every other wielder, the process was identical. The war begins, fighters from all across the country join Tokyo to defend at the main front, and when the plan is set into motion, Kunishige himself chose who was and wasn't fit to wield the enchanted blades. I see no reason to diverge from this formula, and I heavily doubt it did. That being said, every single wielder was known as a master swordsman before the invasion even began. They each have stories to tell, and the only way to uncover them is through their own eyes. Okazono has made his burden a little easier with the case of Uruha and especially Samura, but even then, I imagine we're still going to see their upbringing and Samura meeting his future wife in Inori. Then comes the EI White Purity style, which I can only see being a Kamunabi resource. It would explain why Kiri is in the organization, and it, dare I say, confirms a very popular theory about Izaru. Similar to Kunishige, the country is in peril, but instead of trusting foreign resources for aid, Itsuo turns to the katana, the Japanese creation. But rather than sticking to its fundamentals, he attaches the teachings of spiritual energy and perfects the formula. An objectively stronger form of fighting is created. You can infer that everyone was given equal opportunity to learn White Purity style, but because of ridicule and the immense skill gap required, only a few attained that license. First, Samura, with Uruha following suit. Subaru seemingly has a style of his own, Ibuki was already a known swordsman due to his Misaka brother infamy, and as for the lady, she isn't licensed in the White Purity style either, so you can imagine she has her own approach as well. And she is the one who came after Subaru. Being the first is daunting from a hindsighted perspective, because we know it wasn't anywhere near enough. He held the fort and surely accomplished something, but scars tell stories. Subaru's battle was not an easy one. Forging these blades must have taken days, if not weeks, and with the soon after addition of a second, the battle became just a smidgen more manageable. While the fan-dubbed slithering serpent has yet to show its fangs, the woman's role, age, name, and identity are also of complete mystery. If you take the assumption that she's the wife of Kunishige, her role skyrockets even more in importance from what it already is. But for the sake of fact, she's the very representation of female swordsmanship in a male-dominated series, and the seeds of thematics have planted themselves long time ago. At this point, Japan is starting to fight back. Operation Weaponize the Enemy is a complete success, and their self-defense mechanisms are starting to win against the enemy ever so slightly. With the entry of the third blade, Seiichi Samura, the Tobimune wielder, makes this gap become all the more noticeable. Beyond just fighting prowess, the owl ability and the immediate transport from Crow makes information gathering and status reports a thing of ease. Before then, they had to rely on the scrolls we see the Masumi use, which, while effective, aren't immediate. And in war, information is power. Combined with the Suzaku's healing properties, Japan begins to suffer zero losses in every single battle they partake in. Stories of a flock of crows begin to whisper through the fearing populace, and this is where Konryu Yoshida first sets his sight on the immortal phoenix, and where Japan's war-torn areas begin to repair themselves as byproduct. The universal flames of mercy restore not just allies from the brink of death, but all the infrastructure broken from the prior advances. This is the true turning point. Defense is no longer necessary. Japan is on the winning side, and so begins the reversal. The fourth blade, Cloud Gouger. Ibuki Misaka enters the scene and causes pure, indescribable violence. Lightning, rain, and hailstorms that devour the enemy whole. Like the elements it represents, its whole purpose is to be as destructive, unpredictable, and scary as possible. When you hear thunder, that's a sign of evil dying. Yet now it would be acceptable, and all damage is easily restorable because of the preventive measures of Tobimune. With 4 enchanted blades, the destructive power and teamwork of 4 capable swordsmen was unlike anything seen before. And then came the Kumeyuri, which wasn't used for offensive capability. It wasn't even used for defensive measures, but as support to render the enemy completely incapable and to ensure a landslide victory. And led by the captain of the crew, Akemura, and the final enchanted blade, Magatsumi, they massacred everyone in their path, and shortly after touched land, encroached onto the enemy's territory. With power never seen before at their doorbell, there was only one choice: surrender. Implied execution happened as Islander militia participating in the war would rather lose their life over their honor. But with the deposition of the royal family, after a year and 5 months, the Seitei War had come to an end. To finalize proceedings, the Kamunabi's leaders, Kazen Ichiki Yatsuru, the government agency, and all the other higher-ups arrange a peace treaty meeting to officially recognize a truce between the two nations. A month goes by as both compensate one another and help rebuild what was lost, and as Yura's radio talks about a blade being forged and dedicated to the future peace and prosperity from Kunishige Rokuhira, the hero himself, things are starting to look bright. And that is when Akemura experiences something that would change him from the good-hearted man everyone treated him to be to an utter monster, realizing through some type of instance that all islanders are the same, and understanding that this peace won't last. Another war is bursting at the seams, and something needs to be done about it, which is when he enacts the Maladiction. In a matter of minutes, the nation, hopeful for a better tomorrow, disintegrates. Corpses, insects, and despair. It's his character climax. It's his deep, dark realization and action. This must not be experienced as an outsider. It needs to be from Akemura's shoes. It is pivotal to understand why he did what he did. The 5 wielders arrive at the scene, petrified. The Shinichi drains the life of anyone the owner decrees antagonistic in its vicinity. Samura has to hold Suzaku on every single one of the wielders so that they don't die in the process. This means he was rendered completely incapable of healing anyone who might have still survived if he was there to help them. And on the other side of the island, Yura's life becomes grim as his wife lies dead on the floor. Ambushed, assassinated, that doesn't matter, because chasing the traces of spiritual energy and witnessing the malediction in real time, his life gains new purpose. As the Sword Saint is born both in moniker and grave sin, so too is Yura, the head of the Hishaku. Shortly after the malediction ends, Akemura gives himself up. His job was done. What had to be done had to be done. When Kunishige hears the news, he shuts off completely. After getting all the enchanted blades back from their respective wielders, Kunishige attempts to break the Shinichi any way he possibly could, even asking Samura himself to attempt to destroy it, but without prevail. His despair grows stronger, and the Rokuhira faction answer his plea and isolate him into tranquility. And so begins 15 years of radio silence. Samura goes back to Kyoto, marries Inori, and has a baby girl called Iori, training both the police of his prefecture and youth that want to learn self-defense, all in hopes of suffocating his own sins by doing the most good that he possibly can. Subaru sets up shop in a sushi restaurant. Ibuki spends his days in his mansion with no purpose in life. Uruha resorts to alcoholism, and Akemura is dragged into the deep darkness with no light in sight. This is war, and it does not have a happy ending. While everyone is left feeling all kinds of regret for the actions they took and didn't take, the country is now suffering from rampant mafia crime due to its instability. Knowledge of sorcery is widely out in the open for both good and bad. More Kamunabi recruits that swear swear fealty to protect the nation, but equal-sized people who take advantage of that. Elite families such as the Sazanami rise to prominence as poster boys of criminality, and their reign is without dispute, further enhancing and exposing the freedom these sorcery clans have. The Kamunabi simply have too much on their plate to handle, and this genocide coming to light would be the end of Japan's reputation as a country. And so, they hide it, erase all evidence of it, and begin spreading lies and propaganda of an evil, savage nation that caused the Seitei War. The best lie is coded in half-truths, and so they don't take a full denial approach, rather simplifying and amplifying all the bad qualities, enshrining the Sword Saint as its figurehead hero, yet never revealing more details than that to avoid elaboration and the reality that he's stuck in prison without a chance of parole. Discussion begins over taking away the enchanted blades from Kunishige to utilize them as a way to respond to the Yakuza uprising, but opinions are heavily divided. Some see it as a great choice, others another fatal error in the making, and that Kunishige knows what to do best. Regardless, he's out of reach, and so too are the blades. Azami becomes one of the higher-ups answering for the Kamunabi after his war achievements, while Shiba detaches from the organization completely and would rather look after Kunishige, knowing how bad he's hurting. And in all this tragedy, the newborn Chihiro remained at his side. With the mother unknown, Kunishige's only light keeps him company through these dark, tough times. A child born during the war, right as it was about to reach its conclusion, who is now tasked with the immense duty of having to clean up the mess his father started. That is the Seitei War. And that is exactly why it has every right to be considered one of the greatest arc setups in shonen history, once it does end up happening. Because I can't believe I even have to say this. Yes, it's happening. We aren't skipping over it. You fundamentally cannot. The whole story is based around this one war. Every single character of importance begins their plot in this invasion. And that's not even all of them. There's Hokuto, the Hishaku, Hyuki, and God forbid Sojo. Not every one of them took active roles in the war itself, yet their characters are without doubt shaped by it. I just simply can't prove it. This isn't like the Heian era where events happened centuries ago and only one character is loosely related to it. It's recent, no more than 2 decades old. Its echoes affect the society they live in even now, and to begin repair on those issues, you must first understand them on a holistic basis. So when you hear someone say,
"Guys, I don't think we need to see the Seitei War,"
just reply to them with this: yes, the fuck we do!